challenges they're facing, but it'll probably take a few years to find out how people are measuring the government that will be formed. They know they're under pressure, they know they have to work quickly, but they have huge challenges ahead of them. Gita?
Haru, thanks very much. Haru Mutasa in Juba. Well, the confirmation of the referendum's result is not only being felt in southern Sudan, but thousands of Sudanese living abroad have been watching developments closely as well. Well, for more on this, let's cross to Roslyn Jordan. She's in our Washington, D.C. News Center. Roslyn.
Thanks so much, Hida. That's right. Thousands of people from across southern Sudan's global diaspora voted in the referendum. About 3,500 Sudanese live in San Diego, California. It's home to America's third largest Sudanese expatriate community. Rob Reynolds asked these people about their hopes for the future.
When Matthew Riek walks the streets of San Diego, he sometimes thinks of the long journey he endured as one of South Sudan's lost boys, orphans wandering through a war-ravaged wilderness.
We walked day and night. We were afraid of being discovered by the enemy and killed. And on the way, we did have some of us that were eaten by wild animals.
Matthew is one of about 3,500 South Sudanese in San Diego, part of a worldwide diaspora. In January, many in the community cast their votes in the independence referendum. Chul Tut runs San Diego's South Sudanese Community Center.
I was born in the war and grew up in the war, and now is the time to vote. That means it's going to be my last bullet for that war.
Refugees who came to the U.S. from South Sudan did not have an easy time. When Agnes Olwar arrived 17 years ago, America was far from what she had imagined.
When I got there, it was one-bedroom apartment with 5 or 6 guys, roommates, then plus me and 2 younger kids in one-bedroom apartment. And you can imagine how can we live like this. You know, there is a lot of drug dealers going around. There is a lot of shooting going around. So I tell my husband, I wish I'd go back, live in refugee camp other than, because I was scared all the time.
Now she's the proud owner of her own hairdressing business with a child in college. But South Sudan beckons. Even though they've spent years making their lives here in the United States, many South Sudanese say they're eager to return to their homeland and help build a new country.
When the peace comes, all those people will be going back to Sudan, and they will come with a skill, whatever the skill they have, to bring that nation. That will build up the country. I have to go back and do whatever I can for those people who need the skill.
Matthew Riek, who now has a master's degree in public administration, wants to work for the new government.
One could be thought of as crazy if you want to go back there. But for me, you know, having gotten to where I am today, especially with the education that I've gotten, I feel like, you know, I would do a disservice to my country where I was born, you know, if I don't go there and do something.
Agnes Olwar, too, is ready to leave the relative comfort of life in California for something deeper and more meaningful.
I really want to go back and help out. And also we have like a lot of family that has been scattered all over the world. I wish one day we can just go back and be as family one time. We can have a place we can call home.
Rob Reynolds, Al Jazeera, San Diego, California.
Protesters in the Haitian capital, Port-au-Prince, are demanding that the president, René Préval, leave office immediately. They have set up burning barricades in the street, and they've thrown stones at police. Préval's mandate expires on Monday, but the parliament has given him an extension because a new president has not yet been elected. The second round of voting in the presidential race is currently scheduled for March 20th. Sebastian Walker joins us live from Port-au-Prince. And first off, Seb, what is the status of the demonstration?
Well, we've just seen all throughout the morning a moderate crowd of maybe 200 or 300 protesters gathering right here outside the presidential palace. This is where I'm standing right now. You might be able to see it over my shoulder. Just within the last hour, the police who have gathered in the square, also riot police wearing riot Those protesters who had been early in the day setting up barricades, burning tyres and throwing rocks at the security forces. So it's been a bit of an eventful morning, but the significance of what's happening today is that this is the day that Haiti's president is, under the constitution, supposed to leave office, René Préval. He has extended his mandate in order to remain while the political crisis here gets resolved. But this is a very significant day and there's a lot of tension here on the streets.
Is it, would it be fair to say that the sentiment for Préval's departure is widespread?
Well, it's difficult to say, really. I mean, we have seen over the last few weeks a very serious political crisis following on from the widespread irregularities that happened during Haiti's election back in November. So really all eyes have been on trying to make this crisis better, trying to come up with a resolution that will actually make these protesters happy. We've seen widespread demonstrations pretty much ever since voting day happened back in November. A lot of the protesters are asking for the election to be annulled and held again, but certainly they're not happy with the current government. So there is certainly a lot of opinion on the street asking for Préval to leave when his office is meant to finish. But at the same time, the international community is very concerned that there is a degree of stability that remains here. So they seem to be happy to have Préval stay on until the second round of the election happens in March, when Haitians will go to the polls and actually decide which of the two leading presidential candidates will become the country's next leader.
All right, Sebastian Walker live in Port-au-Prince. We'll leave it there. Thank you. To Brazil now, where fire has destroyed hundreds of costumes and floats ahead of this year's Carnival in Rio de Janeiro. The fire broke out in warehouses used by the city's samba schools early on Monday. It took firefighters 4 hours to put out the fire. Samba groups are calling their loss catastrophic, but the mayor of Rio says that Carnival will still go on as planned on March 6th. The WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange has been in court in the UK to fight extradition to Sweden over claims of sexual misconduct. Let's get more details from Barbara Serra. She's in our European Broadcast Center. Barbara?
Rosalind, thank you. Yes, Julian Assange is wanted for questioning by Swedish authorities over claims that he committed sexual offences against 2 women in Stockholm last year. But his defence lawyer has told a court in London that he would face a flagrant denial of justice if extradited. Lawrence Lee was in court and has the story.
Arriving at court, Julian Assange looked relaxed and less tense than he sometimes does, surrounded by high-profile celebrities, human rights supporters, and urged on by a group of young protesters who see the dark hand of the CIA behind this rape case. His team had tried to steal a march on the prosecutors by publishing his defence against the allegations online, all very WikiLeaks, and they sought to dismantle the extradition case. His defence team argues the Swedish prosecutor doesn't have the right to issue a European arrest warrant. They're concerned the trial would be held in secret with no chance of open justice. They also call it an abuse of process because Assange has offered himself for questioning but was turned down. They also argue Assange is the victim of illegal, corrupt behaviour by the Swedish prosecutors and that any extradition could lead to his deportation to the United States, where he could face the death penalty. The prosecution insists Assange did use violence in his sexual activities in Sweden and tried to play down fears that the case is a ruse to clear the way for an extradition to the United States. The defence team here have started to produce witnesses to try to undermine the extradition case against Julian Assange. Their first, a female retired Swedish judge who says she had more than 30 years' experience in criminal law. She said she regarded the prosecutor's evidence in Sweden against Assange as peculiar and malicious, and the prosecutor as having biased views against men. Yet when the prosecutor here tried to ask her questions, she suddenly found it very difficult to explain Swedish law in English, or even at times to understand some of the questions. Another witness suggested one of the alleged victims had changed her story.
That 48 hours after the crime, the alleged crime, she volunteered to become Julian Assange's personal press secretary. The story given to the police does not bring up those instances.
And Assange himself told the media he was feeling more confident, and so did his supporters.
5.5 months. We have been in a condition where a black box has been applied to my life. And on the outside of that black box has been written the word rape. That box is now, thanks to an open court process, being opened. And I hope over the next day we will see that that box is in fact empty and has nothing to do with the words